he might die. And Edmund, whom the men called Ironside, King Ethelred's son and Uhtred's brother-in-law, now reportedly waged a fruitless fight against Cnut, whose Viking force had won almost every skirmish the previous winter, as it steadily swelled with reinforcements of Saxons and Danes switching to Cnut's side. Edmund could only clench his teeth in rage as he watched more and more of his sworn men change sides. Uhtred had broken off his raids in Mercia after he was informed of the battle at Penn in Selwood, where, despite the Saxons' greater numbers, the Saxon army had still not been able to break through the Danes' shield walls. When night fell over the stalemate, both armies had pulled back. With King Ethelred on his deathbed, and his son unable to win battles even with a superior force, Uhtred had feared he would be trapped in enemy territory. Edmund had withdrawn to lick his wounds and raise new soldiers. And Uhtred knew his brother-in-law well enough to know that Edmund would avoid fighting for a while to rebuild his forces. During this lull, the road north to Uhtred's lands would be open to both Cnut and Leofwine, and the latter was undoubtedly itching to march back north now that the war in the south was deadlocked. Once Leofwine had his army back in Mercia, he would be able to drum up more soldiers, while Uhtred would have only the men who had come south with him in the first place. Indeed, Uhtred's scouts soon informed him that King Cnut was marching north. Since Leofwine was heading straight for Mercia, Uhtred withdrew to the northeast, afraid of being trapped between Cnut's and Leofwine's forces. Uhtred had dispatched his scouts forward, instructed skirmishers to cover his flanks, and made it back to his own Northumbrian borderlands without difficulties. And that's where the surprise had been waiting. As Uhtred's unit had approached a small hamlet, one of his forward scouts, Ulf, came riding back in such great haste that his horse's flanks were covered with foam. Before Uhtred had had a chance to raise his right arm in greeting, Ealdred had turned his horse away from Uhtred's and started barking orders to the men, who immediately dismounted and took shield wall positions bisecting the trail, leaving a small gap they could close the second Uhtred and Ulf rode back through the line.
"There are soldiers in the hamlet,"
Ulf panted, his chest heaving. Uhtred glanced up the trail. Everything looked so peaceful in the pale spring sunlight.
"Many?"
Uhtred asked. Ulf shook his head, saying,
"They set up a peace marker."
Uhtred nodded to Ealdred, who dug his heels into his horse's flanks and quickly rode ahead to confirm Ulf's report. He soon vanished behind a little grove of ash trees. His hoofbeats grew fainter until they were completely gone. The trill of an early lark could be heard from the air above the shield wall. The men stood with their spear tips pointed at the sky, eyes alert, and muscles poised to lower spears at the least sign of an approaching enemy. Uhtred waited. His horse shifted beneath him, and he flexed his calves to tell the animal to stand still. A raven flew over him toward the ash grove. Soon, they heard hoofbeats approaching again. The men instinctively closed ranks, but kept their spears up and their shields resting at their feet. They peered calmly ahead.
"The mark of King Cnut!"
Ealdred gasped, reining in his horse. There was no one behind him.
"Cnut?"
Uhtred asked, eyeing him sharply.
"Just off the road, in front of a farm. There's a spear stuck in the dirt, tipped down, with Cnut's banner tied to the butt end."